This is the North Georgia Life Podcast. Embrace life where you live. Welcome back to the North Georgia Life Podcast. It is Jake, your host. Today we're with Bryan Holyfield with HolyFit Coaching. Bryan is a personal trainer, fitness coach, like a lot of different hats. But Bryan's whole approach, and part of the reason I have him on the podcast, is his approach to personal training, health, fitness, life, just like get yourself in a better place, is very unique and different. And for a lot of people, when I say nutritionist, I say health coach, I say personal trainer, we all think of the same thing. And for many of us, you have tried that and it hasn't worked because it hasn't worked for your life and your rhythm of your day to day. And Bryan has a unique approach. I was actually had a meeting with a friend of mine, a couple friends on Friday last week, and one of my friends just started talking about just his overall health. And he's like, I'm starting to feel better. My wife and I are working out together. We've got this trainer. And I was like, what's your trainer's name? He goes, Bryan Holyfield. I'm like, dude, I know Bryan Holyfield. Like, you are with the right person. And as you will hear in the podcast, Bryan has an adaptive way of helping you wherever candidly, wherever you're at in the country or wherever you're at in your health and your fitness goal journey, break through some of the mental barriers you have, some of the life, kind of barriers, and help you get off that plateau that you don't want to stay on in terms of your health going up or down. I'm not going to belabor the intro. What I will say is, for every person, I think something like this is the right thing in different seasons of life. And for some people, it's going to be shorter than others. For some people, it's going to be more drastic in terms of your results or your goals. But for all of us, I tell people this all the time, like, I don't know how anybody goes through normal life without needing like a counselor at some point in time, because nobody is prepared. No one is prepared for life. Like, you do not graduate college and think that you are equipped for life. Like, none of us are prepared. And when it comes to some of our default modes with health, fitness, life, sometimes we just need that person who's on the other side of getting results and knowing how to help different people get there to kind of step into our world and help us through that journey. So that is who and what Bryan is in a nutshell. You know how to find us online: Facebook, Instagram, North Georgia Life Podcast at gmail.com. If you have ideas for future episodes, if there's places that you went to, you had a phenomenal meal at that is somewhere in the North Georgia region, hey, just shoot us a DM on Instagram or Facebook, or send us an email and just say, hey, like, you got to get to XYZ place. That's some of how we find out some of these hidden gems. And I think you're going to enjoy Bryan's story, how he got where he's at, and just kind of hearing his heart and the people that he can help. He mentions he's got a podcast. He's got books coming out. He gives a ton of stuff away for free in terms of just like life hacks on Instagram. So if you're not following Bryan, like, it's free help. Like, do yourself a free favor and go to Bryan's Instagram, start following him. And remember, the only ask on anything with this podcast is that you share it, you phone a friend, you let somebody know that needs something, needs to connect with somewhere, or just wants to explore more of the beautiful North Georgia area. Let them know about the podcast. With that, we'll get started with HolyFit Coaching and Bryan Holyfield. Welcome back to the North Georgia Life Podcast. It's Jake, your host, and today we have a little bit different episode for you. And this is one of those things that there are probably a million different fitness trainers, especially in the advent of YouTube and online training and stuff like that. But I have, in all my years, I don't know that I've come across a person or a setup that is exactly like this. And as so many people get busy with life, it becomes increasingly hard if you're not in an established routine that is a good health pattern. We'll just call it a health pattern for you, to find someone who works into your life and your schedule in a way that's effective, that's affordable, that's customizable, and that works. And so a few months ago, I came across the gentleman sitting next to me, which is Bryan Holyfield, and his business is HolyFit Coaching. And he has a podcast he just started. He's got a book that he's writing. He's got clients from around the country he helps, and he is right here in North Georgia. So I was like, well, this is a unique episode. It's not maybe a destination, but for some of us, the destination is the pants I used to fit into. So Bryan, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, thinking about destinations, a lot of times we think of fitness as the end goal. And I think of fitness as the path to do the things that you really love.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sure your listeners have hobbies. They have things they love to go out and do, whether it's getting on the lake, whether that's going for hikes, enjoying the beautiful scenery that we have here in North Georgia. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to do that if your health is your main obstacle that you're facing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's fitness, and what we do in the gym, what we do in the kitchen is a pathway to enjoy more out of life instead of thinking about it as being just looking a certain way or even feeling a certain way. What do you have the capacity to do now that mm-hmm. you might not have if you didn't take care of yourself well?
Yeah. Yeah, and I see that in so many different avenues of, my world in real estate. That real estate is a lot of people a buying or selling decision is based on kids or grandkids, and when you talk about what you just said, a lot of people their motivations in life all center around those things. Like, I want to be able to play mm-hmm. catch with my kid. I want to be able to take my grandkid out on the lake and feel like I can be there and play and not just have to sit in a chair and watch them because of XYZ health issues. And most everything can be changed in a fairly short period of time, relatively speaking. So before we get lost in that, tell us a little bit about you, how you found your way to North Georgia, and just kind of a little bit of your backstory.
I've got a pretty unique story to how we got to North Georgia. My wife's family is from Georgia, but she grew up a pastor's daughter, so they were all over. My family's from Mississippi, and I met her when we were kids in Moscow, Russia. Both of our families became missionaries over there in 1999. So her family went in April, my family went in August, didn't know each other before then. So that's how we met, and our families were working closely over there. And then in high school, we were still there, and me and her started dating then and ended up getting married while we were in college. So went back to Mississippi for a little while, stayed down there. Then we were in Indiana when I did my master's degree at Indiana University. Oddly enough, my background is actually in history, and so my master's is in Russian and East European history. And I was a teacher for many years, and in 2019, we moved to North Georgia. That's where my wife's family ended up settling, and we had our third kid by that point, and we needed some family nearby, some grandparents, we needed something. So we're like, well, let's get down here. We loved this area, had visited many times, and just felt like this is a place that we could really put down some roots. So we've been here since 2019 and just really love it. And I taught in Hall County and then White County for a few years before HolyFit coaching took off, and now I'm doing that full time.
Yeah. From a kind of life transition perspective, were you somebody that just kind of always had a high level of fitness, and it was just like, this is something I've got a knack for, I've got a passion for? Or was there, what was that transition like from teaching? Yeah,
so I was an athlete pretty much as far back as I can remember, a daredevil. So thankfully never broke any bones, but plenty of stitches and concussions, But so played all the sports all the way up through high school. But all of my sport background was in Russia, and I missed out on the locker room, weight room kind of stuff. It just wasn't a piece of the puzzle over there. And so into my 20s, even playing collegiate soccer, I had never lifted weights. I had never done a bench press. I had never done a back squat. I had never done these things. And so for me, going into a gym and starting from zero was really intimidating. Mm-hmm. And I put it off. I would go do some pull-ups, at the park, or I would do different things and stayed active. But I definitely didn't know how to protect my overall movement abilities, mm-hmm. right? And I think about that a lot of times. We get these limitations without realizing it. And until we put ourselves in a position where we're exposed, a lot of times it's in the back of our mind, we don't think about it. But, all of a sudden getting off of the toilet is hard. Like, whoa, what happened? Oh, I haven't been doing any squatting, and now I'm in a position where I need a handrail, and that's the reality for a lot of us. If we don't think about it, we start to lose it. And I actually had a pretty severe low back injury that was entirely preventable if I'd been taking care of myself well. And that was my wake-up call, because I spent 3 weeks basically flat on my back, not able to play with my kids, not able to wrestle with my kids. And that was like, I'm 27 years old. Is this my life? And we weren't insured at the time, and I just had to basically just grind it out for a few weeks until I felt like I could finally move around again. And that was my moment of, I've got to do something to make sure that I have a strong core, to make sure that I have mobility, to make sure that I have I want to be able to play ball with my boys. We have 4 sons, and they're all very active, and I want to be the best dad I can be. And so that got me into it at 28 years old, started lifting. And then when the pandemic hit, I saw a lot of teacher friends that just had so much of the stress of teaching got really hard during the pandemic. I know a lot of different professions, things got really hard. And I don't think we were equipped to navigate that well in terms of personal health, stress management, nutrition. And all of a sudden, I saw a lot of people as their health started to really take a turn. It was just like one of those, like, it was the precipice. And so I'd heard about this online coaching, and I thought, well, maybe I could serve the underserved. And I thought teachers and civil servants and people in that public service sphere were really being underserved in terms of opportunities to have quality coaching. So that's when I started my business, and now I've expanded out beyond that demographic, but still have a heart for the folks that really on the front lines in terms of in our communities and in our building up the next generation and all of that. So that's kind of the initial starting point of how I got into fitness, but then also how I transitioned into coaching.
And I think there's probably a lot of people. It seems like it's kind of, we're in that weird place of, it seems like COVID was just yesterday, that, and then it's like, it seems like sometimes it was further away. But a lot of people, I know a number of people that put on 10, 20, 30 pounds during COVID because you're at home and your pantry's right there and you're not getting out doing the things. I mean, just the life logistic alterations. And, we obviously saw the impact of that in the real estate world, because you had a whole bunch of people that all of a sudden, I need a home office now. Like we're remote and we don't know when we're going back to the office. We were not planning on needing a home office or your workspace or a place for the kids now, because they're now not at school. So lots of significant life change that came about through that. And your coaching is not just fitness, and I think that's one of the things that is, I was like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, Bryan kind of makes sense for the podcast, because your approach is not just like, I'm a fitness trainer, I'm going to teach you how to get washboard abs, I'm going to show you how to do 1 hour workout in the gym efficiently, get in the reps, all that sort of thing, weight loss goals. Those are things people typically think of when they are thinking about a personal trainer or someone like that.
Right.
You're I would say, much more holistic, all around perspective of that. So from kind of what you do, and maybe you just want to share kind of what you do on the initial consulting side, some of the clients that you've helped. You were sharing earlier about somebody you talked to recently that spent a small fortune on another very high-end personal trainer, and gave you, it's always nice when you get those compliments of like, hey, I spent 10 minutes, 15 minutes with you and got more value out of what you said in that period of time than what I got out of, weeks or months of this other person. What is different about your approach in that, and how do you kind of approach that?
So I think a lot of times people think of fitness as what happens in their free time. And I'm a lot more concerned about what's happening all the other hours of the week. If you train in the gym, which would be by far put you in the top 1% in American adults if you worked out 3 to 5 hours a week. You'd be in the top percentage in terms of, but I'm a lot more concerned about those other 167 hours of the week. What's happening there? Because I do focus in on sleep. I do focus in on stress levels. I do focus in on your overall nutritional intake, hydration. We can think about supplementation, which is a big thing that people have a lot of confusion about. So I see myself as somebody who's cutting through the noise of all these different voices that people are hearing on social media, all these different arguments of don't eat this, do this, don't do that, and all of that stuff, and just saying, hey, let's lay out a path and a framework for what success is going to look like for you in the least restrictive environment. So how can I get you results without changing everything? What's the minimum amount of stuff that I can change in your life and gradually make some progressions on to get you the results that you're looking for without having to overly restrict your diet or overly, train in ways that aren't sustainable. Mm-hmm. So I'm really focused in on sustainable, I'm focused on simple, and I'm focused on the skills of fitness, right? It is a skill. Staying relatively lean year round, year after year after year, regardless of what life circumstances, that is a skill set.
Yeah. That is a hard to find skill set.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, like COVID exposed this, that our fitness or our health is very dependent, whether we recognize it or not, is very dependent on our environment, and it's very dependent on creating some kind of routine that seems to work. Mm-hmm. Our bodies like staying at maintenance. Our bodies like finding a level place to just hang out. Mm-hmm. So when you gain 15 pounds kind of seemingly out of nowhere, something pretty major happened in your life, right? If you lose 15 pounds out of nowhere, something pretty major probably happened in your life, either to your routine, your mindset, or something that you're doing, whether it's internal, external, in terms of how your body's responding. So my job is to say, how can we keep you on the straight and narrow even when life starts to get pretty messy?
The routine part of that, we talked about that a lot because it's so hard. When you're starting anything new, your brain chemistry, your brain DNA says, I like easy. I like routine. That's why all of us, you can drive to work some days and you pull in the parking lot like, oh my, I don't remember making any turns to get to my office. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had it because your brain's on autopilot, because your brain knows. And I used to joke with people, I'm like, I can really freak you out because if you pay attention, I said, just pay attention when you're doing routine things, brushing your teeth, getting a shower. I said, you put the soap in the same hand, you wash the same body parts in the exact same order, pretty much to the second the amount of time, unless you went out and got super dirty in the yard, because your brain has this pattern operating system that it loves, because it's the easy, change is bad. Like that's what our brain does. And I said, if you'll pay attention to the days that you're at the end of the day, like you are just gassed, like you're exhausted. I said, most of the time it's not the most physically exerting, it's the time you had the most breaks in your routine during the day, where your brain was constantly having to pivot into different areas, go back and forth between different issues. And because you had so much break from your normal rhythm, that's why you feel exhausted, because your brain is not comfortable or used to those things. So when you can build in that pattern, and that's what is so hard for most people as you go through the years, is you just get more and more relaxed in routines that are not serving you well, and to the point that you're, seemingly from a health perspective, you're miles away from the destination you want to be to, and you don't really know that you can maybe point to a single thing that took you there, but it's just year after year. I gained 5 pounds over Thanksgiving. I gained 8 pounds over Christmas. I lost, 3 pounds in January, and then February I fell off the wagon again. The common cycle. Well, you stack enough of those years on top of each other, and then the binge dieting, like all the Beachbody, like all those things that you do that you don't stick with, you don't maintain. Well, that's debilitating to your psyche of like, I can do health well, and then you wake up one day and it's 10, 15, 20 years later and you look in the mirror and you're like, when did this happen?
Yeah.
How do I get back to, and when was the last time I looked like I wanted to look, or I could bend down and tie my shoes without multiple things hurting, and those are some of the things that you build into that. So it's not just the gym element, but it's and that's when you shared initially, like your initial consultation, that's such a refreshing vantage point of like, what are you really after? Because if you're after, my daughter's pregnant with our first grandkid, and this is where I'm at health-wise, and I know when that kid turns 5 or 6 and he's playing his first games at Little League, 5 years from now, if I'm doing the same thing I'm sitting in a lawn chair because I can't, I don't have the mobility, I don't have the health, I don't have the physical activity level. And like you said, you make simple changes.
Yeah.
Well,
you said the routines, right? A lot of your routines are working for you. They do. They work for you. They're great. But my job is to spot the ones that aren't. There's probably patterns of unhealth that you don't even recognize anymore. It's like, I think of it like you're driving, you might be more aware of this as a real estate guy, but you're driving down the road and you see a yard that's just cluttered.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking junk,
yeah.
Right? I would bet you $100 right now that the person who lives in that house doesn't see it.
Doesn't see it.
It just become normal for them, right? But you come in as the real estate agent going, guys, this stuff has got to go. Like, this can't stay here. And that's my job as the coach. Like, look, you think this is working for you, and you think, well, I need that old, that old copper pot, or I need that old, whatever, weather vane sitting over there, underneath the shrubs. But you don't need those things, right? And it's just clutter. And so we have a lot of mental clutter and mental noise around health and fitness, and you probably don't even know where you picked those things up. But you heard one interview with Oprah, or you heard, saw one little clip on social media, or you heard one talk about this, and over time you piece together all these hodgepodge ideas about what fitness and health looks like and what you think you need to do to be healthy. And a lot of times it seems like too much to.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to think about that. I don't even want, And I have that all the time in conversations, like, oh, what do you do? And I'm a health and nutrition coach, and people just kind of, oh, that's nice. I'm going to go over here and finish my donuts, And I'm like, here, let me grab some donuts, and we'll go talk together. Yeah. People think just, that it's got to be this all or nothing, and I'm all about better, not perfect.
That's I was sharing that similar thing, I think it was with our marketing person, and I told her, I said, perfect is the enemy of done. So like make it good, make it done. Don't worry about perfect, because perfect it's very hard, if not impossible, to establish a routine of anything, whether it's business, personal life, whatever, that's perfect. And that's so much of, and everybody, if you've ever been in a gym environment, gyms make their money in December or in January, where everybody's making New Year's resolutions that are no resolutions at all. It's just kind of like let's see how I can let myself down again this year. And if you're a gym faithful, you hate January, because that's when everybody comes in that doesn't know what they're doing, that takes your machine at the time that you're supposed to be on that machine. It used to drive me nuts when I would be in a gym environment, and I just knew, I'm like, just give them 6 weeks, they'll all be gone. I mean, literally year after year after year. I worked in gyms in college, and then was in gym for years, and you just had to deal with that was the reality. And all of those people, they are in the gym because they want some life change. It's not that they necessarily want washboard abs. It's I'm noticing various things about my lifestyle, my health, or whatever, that I don't like, and it's just them trying to figure it out by themselves. And one of the reasons that I know, and I'm certain you do as well, is they have great intentions. They may have a great starting routine, but then life happens. Kind of like you said, you don't necessarily have all bad patterns, and some of your patterns are non-negotiable. Like taking care of, stuff with the home, you taking care of job stuff. And so one of the things, and we'll kind of go into the different contexts that you help people. You do things virtually. You do things in person. You're able to help people that are outside of the state of Georgia, even that have. So if you're listening, you're like, man, I wish Bryan was in, Oklahoma, where my parents are, or whatever. Like, Bryan can help people in different states to just kind of take that life assessment, provide some of that encouragement and accountability on a regular basis, and then build it to where when life happens, when the week doesn't go as it's supposed to, you still have a routine and a plan that doesn't have to get totally abandoned because you couldn't get to the gym 3 days this week.
Absolutely. I can just tell story after story after story of clients, who some of them have been with me a year and a half or more, who have, life happens, things happen. One of my recent clients, he's active military, dad, his wife is pregnant, tornado comes through and destroys their house.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So he loses all their stuff, And so how do we navigate that in terms of, obviously, my fitness program and his workouts are not the number one priority within their family in that moment, right? But he had built up the skill set and the mental fortitude to say, I'm not going to let this derail me, and I'm going to find a way through. He sent me a message and said, hey, I was able to go through the rubble and I was able to find my gym shoes. So I'm going to get back on track next week, And I was like, hey, you never even were off track. This is the way life happens. So a lot of times we have this kind of off-on switch of I'm on track, I'm off track. It's like, this is life. You're moving, you're going. God throws things at you. The world throws things at you. And how can you maneuver and find a way through? And it's more about your adaptability and your willingness. But if you just don't do anything, then you're kind of going to fall apart at almost everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus if in the good times you've got a really solid routine and you've also got the skill set of knowing how to adapt, whether that's through coaching or just through personal experience, then when the hard times come, what I would call your default is that much higher. Right? So it's almost like you're creating some scaffolding. What is the lowest point of tolerance within your health and fitness? If that's 50% better than it was 2 years ago, even when the hard times come, you're going to be a whole lot better off when that season of life is over. So for that client, we had basically a 2-month window where we were just maintaining. He was able to do 1 to 2 workouts a week. He was able to go on family walks. He was able to do, treadmill's gone. That's destroyed, right? Tornado and all that kind of stuff. So finding out what is the least amount that will maintain. He came out of that 2-month window exactly where he entered it.
Wow.
He didn't drop off. He didn't, lose in terms of the progress that he had made. So a lot of times we have to be recognizing that there's different phases in this. Sometimes holding on to what you got for 3 months is a win.
Yeah. Yeah, when a tornado blows up your house. Yeah.
And I think for people, if you're just now thinking about maybe, I need to lose, 10 pounds or whatever, don't even worry about losing any. If you've gained 20 pounds over the last 6 months, month 1 needs to be about not gaining any, because that's a net positive. So if you gained 5 pounds last month, but this month you gained 0, you are moving the right direction. Hold on to that, because month 2, guess what's going to happen? You're probably going to lose a few pounds if you keep doing what you're doing, because your body's already saying, oh, this is working. All right? So it doesn't have to be this dramatic thing. And I have people sometimes in the first month, they're like, I didn't lose any weight. That's okay. That's a good thing. You didn't gain any either, right? So the goal is not to just, flip from gaining 5 pounds a month to losing 5 pounds a month. That's a 10-pound increment. That's a lot of change to your system. Doing it slower and smaller and simpler is going to be a lot more sustainable.
You've had a lot of different stories that I've picked up over the last few months we've known each other. What's you got like a favorite story? Like, that's probably an unfair question when you get to be kind of on the front row seat of seeing people transform their lives and start to make changes that they've been wanting to make, failing at for sometimes years, decades. Any of those that you can kind of share or highlight?
Yeah, there's so many that come to mind. One of them, Kevin's story. So Kevin is a teacher, and kind of found me through a teacher challenge I was doing and jumped in and ended up deciding he wanted to continue working with me one-on-one, still with me. So he's one of my longest ongoing clients. And he told me right off the bat from the beginning, I'm not comfortable in gyms. I don't want to go into a gym. I am very self-conscious when I, around other people about my size and about my weight. And it was less than 2 months after signing up with me that I got a selfie from him. Him and his wife had joined the gym and did a workout together.
Wow.
And so just by building up his confidence in terms of training at home, doing what he could do with the dumbbells that he had, all of a sudden he realized, I'm strong enough, I need more than this. And my wife wants to exercise with me, and this can be something that we can do together. And so he just did it. And seeing that confidence. And then I think it was less than 6 months later, he sent me a message saying, I had the weirdest thing happen. I had multiple people during my workout today ask me how to do a certain exercise or ask me how to use a certain machine because they thought, they were looking at me saying, this guy knows what he's doing.
Wow.
So that kind of transformation, that's more than just, oh, I lost weight or I got a little stronger or I built a little muscle. Like that's a big transformation in terms of your internal confidence. I think how many people are kind of on the fringes of self-doubt, insecurity, and kind of similar to my story in terms of I'm not going to put myself in that environment because I don't want to make myself look like a fool. But having somebody in your corner, having somebody behind you, backing you, all of a sudden that just breeds confidence. And through confidence, you're now going to get more competency. And so I think those two things play off of each other really well. So I love sharing Kevin's story because I think it is really impactful.
So on a couple just personal elements, you've got a book you're working on.
Yeah.
You've got a podcast you just started.
Yeah.
You've got pretty active social media. So take us through some of the things that you've got in the works that you've got out there for people already.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to engage right now would be through the podcast. It's called Winning Small with Bryan Holyfield. It's available pretty much everywhere podcasts are hosted. But Spotify is kind of the main place that I would say just check it out there. Just getting that off the ground. So excited about getting in the podcast game and just sharing simple strategies. It's not just health fitness. There's a lot of different topics that we're kind of uncovering. But simply, how do you find those small wins early? And then what can you do starting tomorrow to start to build some momentum? So really, really practical, really simple, and some different strategies built in there. And the book is very similar. The book's called Small Wins, Big Health. It's going to be coming out in summer of 2024. Really, really excited. So it'll be nationally available. It'll be available on Amazon, in hard copy, ebooks, all of that stuff. So I'm working with an awesome publishing company. And it's just I always dreamed of being an author, and I never thought it would be on health and fitness. Yeah. But that's what it is. So Small Wins, Big Health, and really excited about getting that out there because it's many years of thoughts and thinking about the topics that we've been talking about today. And it's going to go over everything. Chapter on sleep, chapter on stress, chapter on mental noise, chapter on exercise and movement, chapter on nutrition. So really looking at 10 different hacks that we're breaking down and then figuring out how can we start to find some solutions.
If you could go back in time, whether somebody is in this space or going like, man, I've got a passion for this. They had that similar but different moment, like you in your late 20s lying on the couch and like, I got to make some changes. Something's got to give. And they have a passion. They have a desire to do something different, or maybe they've started something different. If you could go back in time from where you're at now to that, what would you say to yourself earlier? What would you do different? Any of those, man, if I could give somebody just a little bit of a head start in terms of where I've come, where I've seen growth and whatever, what would that be?
Yeah, I think you have to, in some ways you fake it till you make it. And I think I'm a perfectionist, and to me, I spent a lot of time overanalyzing, overthinking everything, and I needed to just act. I needed to do what I could do. And something I tell my clients all the time now, and I wish I could have told myself that back then, but if your capacity is only 50% and you give that 50%, you gave 100%. So shifting over from what is my absolute possible best, I've got to give that every time, and if I can't, I'm not even going to try, to I'm going to give everything I've got, even if my capacity is less than. And so for me, that became kind of a mantra of give what I can, right? When I can. And so for me, I already had 3 kids. I had a family that was dependent on me. I was a teacher. I was cleaning churches on the weekends and serving tables and waiting tables and doing all kinds of little things on the side to try to make ends meet. And the stress was getting to me. And exercise, the thing that was my outlet, also became my escape in a good way, right? So exercise was my outlet because that's where I could let go of some of that stress. But by using that as a healthy outlet, it also became a skill that I developed that became valuable. And that value is what I now provide to people. And that is what got me out of a situation that wasn't working for our family. So I would say don't avoid the hard things, because it's that next step, it's that next hard step that might be exactly what is your escape valve.
Yeah, I think that's across so many different categories of life. I was just thinking about when we transitioned from a normal American diet to with stuff with our son. We had some friends of ours that said, we've been down this road, get them off gluten, get them off dairy, get them off soy. And we were as normal of a Western American family as you could ever be in terms of our diet, what we ate, like just whatever you think normal is, that was us. And I still remember standing in our kitchen, like looking at my wife and was like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but let's give it 30 days. I remember we can do anything for 30 days. And our friends told us, they're like, the first week his body's going to detox. And I'm like, detox from what? I'm like, he's 2. Like, what is he detoxing from? And they're like, this, his stool's going to be different. You may start to see some skin rashes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, our kid's not like in a toxic environment. Exactly what they said was going to happen happened in the time frame they said it was going to happen. Removing just some of those simple things from his day-to-day diet. And then the second week, it was the second or third week, we saw him laughing on his own for the first time. And it was like his brain was thinking about something funny, and we'd never seen that. I remember in that same kitchen where we had that conversation weeks before of like, how are we going to do this? Like, I'm literally looking in our grocery or our pantry and our refrigerator, thinking like, I don't know what we have to eat if we're taking those 3 things out.
Right.
And sure enough, it was just that, like, okay, we can do anything for 30 days, and the hard thing, if you can just have a little bit of grit and say, but if it works, but if it actually does whatever, then let's deal with it when we get to that point. And let's be honest, our culture is built around comfort. I mean, most people, the reason your credit card bill looks like it does is not because you had to go do XYZ, is because we're buying comfort. All of our advertising in modern day is primarily built around what makes you comfortable, what makes you feel better, which is kind of emotional comfort. So
no, I mean, I agree about convenience. Convenience it's so easy to stop at McDonald's on the way home, right? It's so easy to entertain yourself with your phone, scrolling. And I talk about easy discomfort. So let's flip the script. It's easy to be comfortable, but can you find areas where it's easy to be uncomfortable, right? Make yourself a little bit more uncomfortable in areas that are controlled environments. The gym is a perfect place for that, because it's very easy to it's a controlled environment, it's a safe environment, but you can make yourself feel discomfort really easily. Yeah. Same is true. I mean, very simply, like, get out of the lounge chair and the big lazy boy, sit on the floor for 30 minutes while you watch your TV show. I bet you'll binge less TV if you're sitting on the floor. I also bet that you're going to change positions a whole lot more. Yeah. your core and your posterior chain are going to be far more active because you can't sit on the floor for more than 30 seconds in one position before you're moving, shifting, constant. And you're going to be a lot more aware how much time that you're spending sitting and stagnant if you're sitting on the floor versus. And these are just simple things that we don't think about. But it could be the trigger that wakes you up to, do I really need to watch 4 episodes of The Office?
Yeah.
You know, it's a great show. But is there something better or more valuable I can do with my time? Or is there some other way I can be taking care of my body with this time?
Yeah.
Not to say that convenience is bad, not to say that we shouldn't enjoy life, not to say that we shouldn't have simple pleasures, but are we finding those moments where we can make ourselves just a little bit uncomfortable in a controlled manner? And now all of a sudden we start to realize the thing that I thought was really, really hard was only hard because I didn't try, right?
So before we wrap up, two quick things. One, from your years in this space and all the conversations you have, all the people you meet, what do you, if you could maybe boil it down, this is, again, probably an unfair question. What is one thing that you see the most common vice, ailment, whatever you want to call it, in terms of people in just their diet and nutrition, just that element? Is there something that you see on a routine basis that you're like, hey, if you're listening and you're driving down the road and this is a common thing I see and an easy way to help yourself?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing that I see people, I think the ratio of food that you prepare yourself to food that is prepared for you is dramatically skewed in the wrong direction. Let's say you have 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, 21 meals. It's considered in the nutrition circles, it's considered to be that you eat out a lot if 3 to 4 of those meals are meals that you eat out or that you have prepackaged foods. So you think about the ratio there, and that's considered, but the average American, it's probably 50%.
Yeah, half. That would be my guess. Yep.
50% food that you prepared yourself versus food that you purchased that was already pre-prepared. And the reality is, as soon as you're delegating the food preparation responsibilities to another outside party who their sole livelihood or their sole business model is to get you to come back, they're maximizing for taste. And for return customers, they're not maximizing for what your body needs. So you're now introducing a plethora of elements that you have no control over at all, and you have no knowledge of what you're really putting in your body. So, the menu says it's 700 calories. Let's test it. Let's test it. Because I guarantee you the cook back there is going, I want people to like my food. The chef doesn't want stuff brought back to him, saying this wasn't any good. So what's listed on the menu is not the actual numbers. But you have no idea. You have no way of measuring that. You have no way of tracking that. You have no way of understanding what ingredients were used or weren't used. So you think about how many elements are being added in that you have absolutely no control or knowledge over. Versus when you sit in your kitchen at home, I'm a simple guy.
Right.
When I make something for myself, it's very simple. Right? Because I don't want to mess with 23, different ingredients. I just don't have that capacity. So we're much more minimalistic when we make our own food. And we're also much more at we're beholden to what we have. So if you're making your own food, that means you're also buying your own food. And so now you have much more control over what comes through your doors in terms of what you buy. What ingredients are being added in to the food that you're eating. You're talking about soy. We're talking about seed oils. We're talking about all these different processed chemicals that in relatively simple foods that we're making ourselves, like a simple carb, a simple, protein source, some veggies, and, healthy fats. Very simple to make a balanced plate when you're doing it yourself. 4 or 5 ingredients, as opposed to what we're getting when we eat out. So if we could switch that narrative over, and it doesn't mean never eat out, but if you could switch it over to an 80-20 principle, 80% of my meals are going to be prepared by me or by someone in my home. And if that can be a place that is like a normal landing spot for you, you're going to be doing a heck of a lot better than the average person.
I know we're short on time, but the something that you said in one of our earlier conversations, which was just made my ears perk up, because I am, and I think we may have talked about this, I'm always looking at creative things that we can do in our real estate space to make an impact and difference in our clients' lives, and one of those being like creative closing gifts. And when you said that the training is adaptable to people's life and schedules, because you've got the virtual option, you do have in-person as well, and then you've got kind of a hybrid as well. But then if husband and wife are doing it together, that's also a thing for you. So if this is if somebody's listening and it's like, well, my spouse and I have talked about this, neither of us kind of knows where to start, and this is something, especially if you both have a similar goal or motivation to make some changes, it's a whole lot easier if that other person is with you doing the same thing, effectively on the same routine, schedule, team, thought process, all of that. Take us through a little bit of those different approaches, and then you got a husband and wife or something like that wants to do this together, what that looks like.
Right, yeah. So right now I have 3 different couples that are doing a hybrid training plan with me. So I see them twice a week. They come in for their workouts. They have workouts that they do on their own. I modify everything. So obviously there's going to be different imbalances, men versus women in terms of strength components. There's going to be different goals in place. And also, let's say we're dealing with an older couple in their mid-60s, right? This one's got a nagging, knee injury. She's got a back issue, whatever. So we have to navigate that. So modifying, customizing. They have some workouts that they do at home on their own, and those are independent of each other, and those are unique and personalized to them. And then we make those modifications in person as well. Each of those, husband and wife, both have their own nutritional targets. Very similar in terms of what's recommended and suggested. Quantities and amount is going to be different because each person has different needs for their metabolism. But I think it is a really effective method, like you're talking about, to have that camaraderie as well as the bonding experience and just that shared experience, because now you can both hate me together. I can be the bad guy, right? I can be the bad guy. So I think we've all seen those dynamics in different relationships where maybe they're not on the same page in terms of which direction they're pulling, particularly when it comes to health. How do you tell your wife that you'd like her to work out more? Like, that's not,
You don't.
You don't.
You
exactly.
do not.
How do you tell your husband that he needs to get off his butt and be more active with the kids? It's a little bit easier if it's like, hey, Bryan said. So I can be the bad guy, right? That's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I do fully in-person coaching. Honestly, though, I think more bang for your buck in the online or the hybrid, because again, you can pay me a lot of money to come, watch you work out for 3 hours a week,
right?
But you're going to get a lot more value out of having me in your pocket, right? In terms of having some accountability.
Yeah, and that's, in our first conversation, that was the thing that I don't say I liked the most, made the most real sense to me, because of how busy everyone is going to a gym 3 to 5 days a week or whatever. It's just not a practical, feasible thing to add a whole new life routine system in place.
And it's not even necessary. Right? It's not even necessary.
Yeah, some of the most healthy people that I've ever been around have never been to the gym. They do body weight exercises, and they have just built in that system that is part of their day to day. And and they look great. They don't look like they're on steroids. They don't look like they're starving to death. They just look good, and it is body weight, and it's system, and it's a routine, and it's all of that. And that's where it was like, for clients that we have that we know are super busy, and we've heard them talk about different health things, and like, this is a great thing for us to be able to connect them with and give them that positive life momentum. That, because like you said with Kevin's story, it is once you turn that first corner and you start seeing, I'm breaking the rhythm and the routine that I've been stuck in, like, it's exciting. It's exciting for you. It's exciting for them, because you're like, oh, I am changing, like physically, internally, all of that. So last question I like to ask before the end of every episode. It's called lightning round, which typically has nothing to do with anything we've talked about. However, this is a selfish lightning round question.
All right.
So the best tasting guilty pleasure that is not terrible for you.
Yeah, I like some peanut butter toast with honey.
Peanut butter toast with honey.
Yeah.
We started. It's funny you say that. We have not talked about this. So we have started integrating coconut oil in so many things. We made, it's a couple times this since January, we've made our son's teachers toast in the morning. We just bring it to them when we drop them off in school. And so it's sourdough that my wife makes. So sourdough is gluten-free flour, salt, and water. That's it. Yep. And most of the gluten, if you're not making gluten-free flour, burns off during the fermenting process. We toast it, and then we do coconut oil, like literally just buy it at Sam's, Costco, like the big thing for like $8. Lasts a long time. Well, not as long as it used to because we use it for everything. But then peanut butter or almond butter, hemp seed hearts. So like the fresh milled hemp seed, it's got a ton of protein and good omegas and stuff like that. Yeah. And then honey and some sort of fresh fruit, bananas, strawberries, whatever. It looks like $12 toast. Yeah. And it's super good for you. It's filling, and it's one of those things. I had it for lunch yesterday because I was really hungry. I didn't want to go like a badger through the pantry and just, eat terrible. And I knew like it's so good for you, and it's so filling and it's, it takes 5 minutes to make in the morning. And so it's funny you say that. So if you've not tried putting the coconut oil underneath the peanut butter, do yourself a favor. Okay. It's amazing.
Some good fats there. So.
Awesome. So Bryan, how do people find you if they want to check you out anonymously on your website, on Instagram, Facebook? Like how do they find you?
Yeah. So Instagram is where I'm really most active. So it's Bryan, Bryan, Holy, the word holy, HOLY.fit. Okay. BryanHoly.fit. And then my website is HolyFitCoaching.com. I mentioned podcast, Winning Small, Bryan Holyfield, and that's kind of the main three.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Bryan, thanks for your time, man. And your book comes out in the summer?
Yeah, should be end of June, early July.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So that'll be Amazon, Audible, wherever.
Absolutely.
And the title of that again is?
Small Wins, Big Health.
Small Wins, Big Health. Awesome. Bryan, thanks for your time, man.
Thank you.
This is the North Georgia Life Podcast. Embrace life where you live.